الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala mentioned in the hadith, أربع من أوتيهن أوتي خير الدنيا والآخرة. That there are four things, and whoever has been granted these four things has been granted khair al-dunya wal-akhirah, the best of this world and the akhirat. And this hadith is also from the Jawami'ul Kalim. And this is Jawami'ul Kalim is from one of the qualities of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam, that it is we that need a long lecture to try and explain something to people, and we ourselves have become as such that even after a long lecture we still do not understand. Whereas Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam would mention things briefly, but in such a manner, in such a concise manner, that those limited or few words would encompass within it great meaning. And the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala were also so receptive to Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam and to the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, that they would understand it as well. They would not need any longer bayan and tashri and commentary for it. They would very easily understand what Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam was saying. This is the quality of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, and also the athar, the effect of the words directly coming from Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, and also on the ikhlas of the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala. As I mentioned in last week's Majlis, of how the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala benefit from the gatherings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, the ma'ayyat of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. Because there was not just the companionship, but there was also the ta'seer, the effect in the words of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, the nur that emitted from the words from the mouth of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam. And the Sahaba Kiram radiallahu ta'ala, their hearts were open to it and receptive to it as well. Hence one of the adab of any gathering is that we should attend first of all with ikhlas. On ikhlas is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives, and we should attend with an open heart. The more open our heart is, the more can be filled in it. Just to be, person has a jug of water, a jug of tea or so, and then you have a cup. If the cup is on the right side, right way up, you can fill the cup. However, if it is if it is placed upside down, then pour the entire jug on it, not even a single drop will enter within the cup. If our hearts are shut, then lecture after lecture after lecture, dars after dars after dars, and not a single matter will enter within the heart. And if the cup is the right way up, whatever you pour in it, it will fill to the extent that it will even overflow from it. The more talab and desire that we have, that's how much Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives as well. Because when a person attends any deeni gathering, the maqsad and the purpose should be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the connection that a person establishes with a shaykh as well. This is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So whatever mujahada a person undertakes in getting to the shaykh, coming to the majlis, undertaking by being in a company of the mashayikh, all of this is for what? All of this is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As our Hazrat Rahmatullahi would say that the more love a person has for his shaykh, it will result to more love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because that love with the shaykh is not because of the individual, necessary for the individual himself, but that love that is there, that connection that is there, that has been established for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when a person goes to a person's shaykh, those who attend any majlis, for instance, any gathering, and that also of the ulama, there is no handouts afterwards, that those after you leave, there'll be some hampers, some baskets or some gifts for you, for all those who have attended, and the envelopes will be given out to people who have attended. There's no material gain in that sense. You don't attend there that you're going to get something materialistically. So a person attends solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Hazrat Rahmatullahi would mention as well then in Karachi, and especially in the month of Ramadan, where there would be people from different countries gathered there. Different nationalities would be gathered there. And Hazrat Rahmatullahi said that, look, all these who are here, there's no blood ties here, in the sense that they are relatives and relations here. The nationalities are also different. Somebody will be from England, somebody will be from America, somebody will be from Karachi itself, various parts of Pakistan, from Bangladesh, from India as well, South Africa, Zambia. So various parts of the world, people will be gathered there. And Hazrat Rahmatullahi would say that, look, they have gathered here for one purpose alone, that is for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ta'alluq here, the connection here, the love here, is solely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that love itself, that love as well, that is halal love. That is also included in the love of deen. It is also included in the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence when we say La ilaha illallah, in a kalima La ilaha illallah, where there is here La nafi first, rejection first, that we reject and we negate everything illallah but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That everything, La to everything is negated from our hearts. And when everything is negated from our hearts, that is when illallah will enter in our hearts. For illallah, there needs to be La before it. You need to negate everything else. निकालो याद हसीनों की दिल से मरजूब खुदा के घर पे इश्क बुता नहीं होता. Khaja Aziz Rasul Masur Rahmatullahi mentions that निकालो याद हसीनों की दिल से मरजूब, this is La ilaha. Remove the love of everything else from the heart, and here all the idols from the heart. खुदा के घर पे इश्क बुता नहीं होता. There is no idol worshipping in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just the way the Baytullah, the Kaaba has no idols there, all the idols have been clarified, cleaned from that. Similarly, the heart, which is also the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that has to be free of any idol worshipping as well. If there is idol worshipping taking place there, then there won't be any illallah. So you have to negate, first remove La ilaha, and when La ilaha is taken place, then illallah. That's when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the love of Allah ta'ala, the wujud of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enter in the heart. As long as there is everything else, then there won't be any Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in negating all those things which are ghairullah, that is what we have to negate. And in that which is not ghairullah, we need that which is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ta'alluq that a person has with his shaykh, the ta'alluq that a person has with those who Allah ta'ala has allowed a person to love, all of that is in illallah. Because love for your family members, love for your asatiza, for your mashayikh, these are those things which will lead to positive things. These are what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed for us. So those will not be from those things that we have to do la of, that we have to negate. As long as family members and those who are beloved to us are not the means of transgression, they are the means of us disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they are also included in illallah. But when family members become the means of us disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they are also in Allah. Then you have to negate them as well. These are all zinat, these are all azmaish, fitna. إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ fitna. All of these things, wealth that a person has which is halal, a person's family, his children, all these things are fitna. And by fitna meaning that they are a child from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that do they aid and assist a person in carrying out obligations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or do they become a hindrance? By hindrance meaning that in love for them that a person does what? The person disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hence the dua that Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa has taught us in love of Allah ta'ala, Allahumma inni as'aluka hubbak. Allahumma jad hubbaka habba ilayya min nafsi wa ahli wa min al-ma'il baridi. Oh Allah, we ask of you of your love. And grant us your love. Which love? Habba ilayya min nafsi. Such love of yours which is more than myself, than our own nafs, our own being. That we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than we love ourselves. Meaning that each person loves himself, each person has respect for himself, each person caters and fears for himself and cares for his own well-being and his good. But in doing so, a person should not go beyond the boundary that a person then in doing so, in looking after him or herself, disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That a person is so conscious with regard to their sleep, that if I do not get my beauty sleep, then it's going to affect me personally, my appearances, my body physically and that. So due to which a person does not wake up for Fajr Salah. That means that we love our sleep, we love ourselves more than we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We love the cheeks on our face more than the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam, that we do not want to keep the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam because we think that is going to have an effect on our appearances. We do not want to adopt other characteristics and appearances and sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam because of the manner in which we want to dress, the manner we want to act, the manner in which we want to display ourselves. This is showing what? That we love ourselves more than we love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ahabba ilayya min nafsi, more than we love ourselves. And nafsi includes as well the desires that we have. One is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what Allah ta'ala desires from us, and the other is what we desire, what our nafs desire. Do we fulfill what our nafs desires? Or do we fulfill that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us? Earning as well, we have an opportunity where we can earn from something that is haram, for instance. So what do we give preference to? Do we give preference to that which is haram and go down that route? Or do we give preference to that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has regarded to be halal for us and adopt that means? Although apparently in front of us it may seem that we are in a better position if we go down the route of haram, that we will earn more, we'll have more of this dunya, and we will be able to satisfy ourselves more through that. But do we look at that, satisfying ourselves, looking towards our needs in a haram manner, or do we look at that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has kept halal? And we go down the route of that which is halal. And there are many who have made that qurbani, the sacrifice, who have forgone, who have made sacrifice, not gone down the route of haram, where they could have earned a lot through the means of haram, but instead they have adopted that which is halal. Who have inquired from ulama as well with regard to, look, this opportunity I have, this employment opportunity that I have, this money-making opportunity that I have, is it halal or haram? Is it halal or haram? And where there is haram, there is great temptation there. There is great temptation there. So much temptation that you don't want to ask. And many are such that know within the heart that, look, it seems a little dubious or dodgy, but because the temptation is there, we still go ahead with it instead of asking. And on this one example, for instance, which is a common one, many people have been asking this of late, and many of you may have that in your mind as well, with regards to Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. which is in the mind of many. It is in the mind of many. And why would it not be when it is something that flashes in our minds just as appealing, as glowing, that the gold shines in the advertisement of these things. So it just sparks there in our minds that yes, this is a good way of investing, a good way of making money. There will be those who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives hidayat, and before they undertake any such venture, will inquire and ask from the ulama that is this halal or haram, what is the ruling with regard to this? That percentage, unfortunately, is very small. The other percentage is of those who do not care. Who do not care of halal and haram and will just go down the route of what seems most appealing to them. And in that category, you might have a percentage who in their hearts will also feel that, look, it doesn't seem right, but they'll be overtaken by temptation. Or what they will do is that they will try and justify themselves, or that they will then become muftis themselves. So it seems okay. I'm fine in investing, and so it looks okay. I don't see any gambling, what they may understand as gambling. I cannot see any interest. So the only thing we think is as long as there's no gambling and there's no interest taking place, it's halal. That isn't the case. With all transactions, there are many other clauses that a person needs to look at and pay heed to, aside from just that of gambling and interest. And when it comes to gambling and interest, we just know interest in one form and gambling in one form. There are other manners in which the transaction or the clauses in it can lead towards or also constitute of gambling and interest. And that is something that maybe we may not perceive or understand, or we may not notice. But the ulama kiram, the muftiyani kiram, these are those things that they are aware of these clauses. With regards to this, as I mentioned, this is a common one. That is, there is that temptation, that desire that can we invest or not, shall we invest or not? Alhamdulillah, there are those who inquire and those who do ask. With regards to now you want to know what is the masla, are we allowed to or not, or is it permissible or not? So just a few, as the actual mawzu topic of the Majlis isn't this. But just as we've just diverted on to halal haram. With regards to Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, what we have to understand is that at the moment, because this is something that is new, it is something that was not used in the past either, and it is something, a new concept. And this is the reality of it. It is a concept more than an actual object itself, due to which it isn't a straightforward masla. It needs sort of thought given to it as to where it's going to lead to, because it is something that is still evolving, you can say. It isn't something that has come into practice as yet. And due to this, the ulama kiram, there are those who have given the verdict of it being impermissible, and there are those of the opinion that, look, until we are not certain, we will rather advise that you should abstain and stay away from it. There will be a very small amount, or very small percentage, small group who may have allowed it. Those who have clearly allowed it are in the minority at the moment. In this moment in time, they are in the minority. Now what we have to realize here is, one is that what is the Sharia ruling at the time? Because people question and ask as well, that what do we do under these circumstances? Because when we Google it, then we'll find some websites, some fatwas that say it is halal, it is permissible, and there's those that say it's not permissible. Some muftiyani kiram who say it is allowed, there will be those who say it's not allowed. Not just this, but many other examples. When this is the case, Nabi Kareem sallallahu ta'ala sallam mentions, istafti nafsak. There will be occasions wherein you can ask the question to yourself as well. That, look, is this something that, are you completely satisfied on it yourself? Are you completely satisfied with it yourself? If you yourself feel that you're not comfortable, then it isn't something that you have to take. For example, it's investing in Bitcoin and that. It isn't something that is imperative, it's not something that is compulsory, it's not something that you have to do. And where there is a difference of opinion between halal and haram, their precaution is what? That look, you take the verdict that it could be haram, because it's not first imperative upon you, so you're not going to deprive yourself of doing some ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you abstain from it, then there is caution in abstaining. There is caution in abstaining. And that is the ahwat, that is the most reliable opinion, that a person, until there isn't anything stamped and sealed or definite as yet, that a person should caution with it and take the opportunity. Yes, as much as appealing it may seem to us, as much as it may seem a great opportunity for us, when there is this debate within it, with whether it is halal, and to that extent that many Darul Iftas are still working on it, they haven't still been able to come to a definite yes or no. And if you wonder that why is the case, the reason being is because we look at it in a simple form, that look, this is how it works and this is how it should be done. But because this is something which is more of just an idea, a concept, more than actual reality. Bitcoin or cryptocurrency isn't something that has been developed anywhere specifically in a form that it has been accepted by any government or accepted by any country or accepted amongst the people to be a actual currency. What may occur later on is something that may occur later on, but currently it isn't something that is universally or even locally accepted as a currency. There is no physical body of it. There is no value to it. You cannot value it. Like you have something else, you have something that you have, you can put a value on it, and look, this is a commodity. It is something that you can use as being, or give in the form of, as you say, money, for example, monetary-wise, something that you have in your hand, it has some value to it. This isn't something that you have with you or possession of it, or that something that you can have. It's just a concept. It's not something that actually exists in front of you. That's why now if we do a deal, in doing a deal, we can easily exchange money. We'll exchange something in lieu for one another. We've got physical money. If we do not have money, we have the card. You will say the card is not money, but the card represents the money, because you know when you use the card, the money is going to go in your account. You'll swipe your phone or you swipe something, there's no money there, but the money is actually, that does exist there, you will see it there in your account, and it is physically, you go then, you can withdraw it from your account as well. But this is something that there is no physical wujud of it, any existence of it. And not only that, but there is no hifazat, tahfiz of it. There is no protection of it. For instance, nowadays, if you were to make a bank transfer, the banks are very particular that, look, are you sure that you know who you're paying it to? Now you have to actually, in the past you could just go to the bank and just put the money into any person's account. This is the account number I've got, I want to put this money into it. You could just go there and give them and put it into it. Now you can't do that. Because whoever that person is, it could be fraud. If it is a fraud, then when you come back to the bank, there's nothing they can do about it, because you and they just put it into that account. So they're very specific with regard to that. That what it should be, you put it in your account, and from your account you transfer it into that person's account. So you asked as well that, look, are you sure is this person, that you know who this person is? And they will do what? They will check the bank details. So now they ask for a name as well. Just merely putting the sort code in the bank account, it does not suffice, they want a name. So there has to be a name. So that is a security check. So you yourself have that security there, that this transaction is secure. There is security behind it. Here in cryptocurrency, there is no security there at all. Nobody can guarantee you security. People have lost so much in it as well. So many have done so much fraud, you'll know about it in the media as well, who've made millions and run away through this as well. So there is no tahfiz al-mal, you see, protection, and nobody can guarantee any protection of it. Neither is it something that actually is in wujud, exists, something that is acceptable. For example, you're going to sell something to somebody, When you sell it to somebody, it's a case of, look, you've got three options. You can either pay cash or PayPal or bank transfer or some other means that you utilize. Nobody now will say, oh, if you want to, then you can give me some shares in Bitcoin or so, some percentage in Bitcoin or currency or so. But how much currency? You don't even know the value of the currency. You don't know how much currency. What is that? There is no actual wujud currency. So you can't go to shop, do you take Bitcoin? You can't go to shop and say, do you accept cryptocurrency? They say, no. No country in the world can you go and you do not deal with it. So it just shows that because it isn't something that actually is there physically available and utilized. So for that reason, it is not an acceptable currency. And when it is not an acceptable currency as yet, then how can you say that it is halal or haram yet? Yes, what happens in the future we do not know. If it is something that becomes acceptable, not even universally but locally or certain countries, certain places, it is something that is accepted and it is in wujud, then you can deliberate on it. Look into it in that manner, or what we know of it in that form. Up till then, it's a case of no matter how appealing it may seem to us, the ruling there is that, look, ahwat is, protection is that, look, we should not invest in something like that. There's no need for us to go down that route because we do not know, and especially when there is two opinions taking place. Because what happens then is that we, instead of following that which we think is precaution, we follow what our nafs and desire is. In doing so, we will even take the fatwa of a mufti, who in other masail we do not follow. In other masail we would not ask that mufti because maybe fiqh-wise, that person's fiqh is different, madhab is different fiqh-wise to us. So with regards to other masail, we would not go to that mufti. But not just because that mufti might say that, look, this is permissible and it is something that appeals to us, it is something that we are keen on, that we will take from that mufti on this. And our own mufti kiram, and by our own I mean those who have our maslak, who we would normally turn to towards various masail and that, and take guidance from. We leave them on that, but everything else we will take advice from them. Which shows what? We are not following deen here. Here what we are doing is we are doing I.T.A of our nafs, and this is what it is. And this comes to any masla for that matter. If we pick and choose, this is exactly what we are doing. It's called talfiq in the sense of fiqh. And talfiq is where a person picks and chooses. That where it suits us, we'll become a Hanafi, where it suits us, we become a Shafi, where it suits us, we become a Maliki also. So this is what? This is not actually following the fiqh of Imam Malik rahimahullah, the fiqh of Imam Abu Hanifa, the fiqh of Imam Shafi'i, but we are following the desires of our nafs at that time. That is exactly what we do. And the Imam Arba, the Imam Mutafiq, unanimous on this is true, that a person who does chop and change in this manner, his ibadat will not be accepted. What he is doing is not permissible. Because he is not following deen. He is following his desires, his nafs. That's what he is doing. He is not following deen. For instance, any matter in which we find that here on this occasion it suits us, somebody does wuzu. And in doing wuzu, he's just done his wuzu and he's going to the Jamaat Khana, and what happens, his hand scrapes somewhere and he starts to bleed. And he starts to bleed, he can't be bothered to go back and do wuzu again. He says, well, Imam Shafi says it's fine, so I'm going to follow Shafi fiqh. I'm going to follow the Shafi fiqh. That's what. And then along with that, for instance, he's leaving the house. And then while he's leaving the house, his wife then comes to the door, honey, don't forget me. And then he embraces her, he touches her also, within the state of wuzu. By which then he says, oh well, Imam Hanifa, that is fine, Imam Shafi, the wuzu may break. By touching the wife with lust, the wuzu breaks, so here this is fine. I'm Hanafi anyway, so Hanafi doesn't matter. So when he touched her in that manner, it was a case of Hanafi, but wuzu doesn't break. But then when he scratched his hand, or he had a cut that started to bleed, then now he becomes a Shafi'i. The Aima unanimous that his salah performed with that type of wuzu will not be accepted. Because he did not follow Imam Shafi rahmatullahi, but he followed his nafs. If he wanted to on that occasion, if he wanted to follow Imam Shafi with regards to the blood, then he should follow Imam Shafi in this ruling as well. Because these are those masail pertaining to same one ibadat. Not a total different ibadat, that was to do with wuzu and this is to do with salat, for instance. So in wuzu maybe you took one fiqh and in salat you took another fiqh. That is even a different matter. Here is in one action itself, one ibadat itself. A person takes from two different imams, he is doing what? He's not following Imam Abu Hanifa, he's not following Imam Shafi rahimahullah, but he is following his nafs. Here in fiqh and fatawa as well, where we then look around and we search for a reply or an answer that suits us, we are following our nafs. And then you have that situation wherein maybe within the fiqh itself, you might have a reliable Hanafi Mufti who may say something is permissible, and you may have a reliable Hanafi Mufti who says something is impermissible. So now who do you follow? There the ruling is as well, that whoever you have more inclination towards, you have a greater inclination towards their righteousness and piety, then by all means you go and you can accept that. As long as you are not following your nafs, look at yourself and ask yourself that on this occasion, what is it that I'm wanting? Am I just wanting to know what the ruling is so I can follow it accordingly, or is it because no, my sway is towards wanting it to be halal, so that's why I'm going to take the one that says halal. And then beyond that, you have the ruling of, which is for everybody universal, that is, look, there is always that option that you take of that which is being proportioned. Where you have something that is halal and haram, if one is saying something is halal and the other is saying something that is haram, then adopt that which is halal. Stay within the boundaries of halal. Why go towards haram? When you know that safety is in halal, then let me just stick to halal. Unless it is a matter wherein of desperation and need, that is the only option, and there is reliable Muftiyani Kiram who are given a fatwa of the permissibility of something, that is fine. But in general, normal circumstances, for example, we have the debate with regards to prawns. A common one. Amongst the Ahnaf itself, there is difference of opinion. There is those who say it's halal, fine, nothing. There is those who say it's haram, they say those is makruh. So which one do you take and undertake? Asad Mufti Mahmudul Hasan Sahab Gangohi Rahmatullah Alayhi was once asked with regards to this masla. So his jawab in his reply was what? He said, bhai, झींगा न खाने से कोई कभी मरा तो नहीं. His reply was that, look, nobody has died not eating prawns. Nobody has died because they didn't eat prawns. But this was his reply. Indicating towards what? कि ठीक है, there is those who say it's halal, they will say those who say it's makruh, they will say those that is not permissible. But the reality is that, look, if you don't eat, it's not a requisite that you have to eat it as well. It's not a necessity that you have to have it. And nobody has died not eating it, so if you were to abstain from it, then no harm is going to come to you. Yes, the ruling would be, if now, for instance, a person is suffering from an ailment, illness, or need, where now the doctor prescribes that, look, your remedy is in eating prawns. There is no remedy elsewhere, look, your remedy is eating prawns. Or if someone is starving, there is no food at all, and prawns is presented to him, then under that circumstances, you can say, look, the Hanaf do say it's permissible. Now, if it's a case where in life and death, where there is life and death matter, then you can even consume haram if you have to. You have to, you can even consume haram there. But there also the ruling in haram, even there where Allah Ta'ala allows us, there the ruling from ture غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. There too, for example, a person is in a need. There's no food at all, he's about to die. The only food available is what? Haram meat that is available. Deen and Sharia says, now it doesn't mean that because that is the case, you say, now let's barbecue. We've never eaten pork in our lives. Allah save us from it. Never bacon and pork. Now Sharia has given an allowance, I'm going to die here and this is the only meat available now. So let's now barbecue it and have it, enjoy it. No. غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادَ, Allah says. Without transgressing. Meaning, do not spice it, dress it up and make it so delicious. And only eat that amount that you need to survive. Not the case of Nasara, just have the whole hot dog and a couple other hot dogs as well till I fill my stomach. It's case of just have that amount that you need to just to stay alive. That's it. So there, even that is permissible to that extent alone. And where is normal circumstances? Their permissibility is one side, impermissibility on the other side. Precaution will be that you stick towards that which is cautious for you. That look, stay within halal and abstain and stay away from that which is impermissible. This prawns is just a must have just mentioned to you as an example, for instance. There is views both sides. Coming back to what I was mentioning here with regards to these types of currencies, there is no need that we have to this. If a person wants to invest and a person wants to make some money, there are many other opportunities that a person can have to do business and make money, which we know of, which is halal. There is no dispute there as well. There is no difference of opinion. Then take up those means. There is no need for us that we need to adopt that wherein we are not sure, where there is difference of opinion, just so that we can enjoy the fruits of it or due to our temptations for it. So this is something that we need to bear in mind, that until the Muftiyani Kiram and until this doesn't become something that yes, it can satisfactorily be said with ease and sharaf sadr that look, this is permissible, then a person should abstain from it. Then a person should abstain from it and avoid these type of investing in these type of currencies. Barhal, this is brief with regards to this. और बात कहाँ से गुजरी निकली थी is with regards to La ilaha illallah. असल तो वो हदीस बयान करनी थी of the four things the Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentions Jawamil Kalim. Barhal, halal and haram, La ilaha comes and then there is illallah. So in La ilaha, you have to negate all those things which are haram, all those things which are ghairullah. You know, that I was mentioning with regards to in illallah, family and all those which are halal come into illallah. But on condition, they themselves do not become a means of us being drawn towards the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, they will also fall under ghairullah. If in pleasing them, we go down the route of haram. Let's say the dua. Allahumma jal hubbaka habba ilayya min nafsi. Oh Allah, grant us your love, which is more than our nafs. Us par ye mal ki baat aayi thi. Wa ahli, and my family members. And wa min al-ma'il barid. So wa min ahli as well, Nabi Sallallahu mentions. Because the family can also become a means of drawing a person away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have this, they want that, look, we want to be able to do this haram and do this entertainment and that entertainment, go to this place and that place, venues and avenues which would be pleasing to them but displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in order to please them, we want to do what? We displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just by giving them that pleasure and giving them that opportunity. So for that we ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, grant us your love which is more than we love our family members. And then Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, وَمِنَ الْمَاءِ الْبَارِدِ, and love of yours which is more enjoyable to us than cold water. Which is why? Because when it is the month of Ramadan, for instance, and hot, and here in the Arabian Peninsula, and also in the heat of Arabia, the deserts of Arabia, just imagine the enjoyment of cold water. Haji Imdadullah rahmatullah alayhi once said to Hazrat Hakim rahmatullah alayhi कि मियां अशरफ अली ठंडा पानी पियो. He said to Hazrat Hakim rahmatullah alayhi, drink cold water. इसलिए कि फिर रग से अल्लाह का शुक्र निकलेगा. Drink cold water, because when you drink cold water, then throughout from your whole body you show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But now doesn't mean us, we in the winter of UK, we start drinking cold water. The NHS is already in a bad and poor situation, so you don't want to increase that. Meaning that when a person drinks, especially when it's warm and it's hot and a person's throat is dry, when a person drinks cold water, the enjoyment that a person gets at that time, you cannot parallel that with anything else. That enjoyment you cannot replace that enjoyment. Such a great enjoyment that is. And that is an enjoyment that you do not just perceive on your tongue or your throat, but it is a pleasure that the whole body feels it. You feel the enjoyment of that where the coolness, the whole body feels it. The lizzat and the enjoyment of it, the whole body feels it. Hence Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam gave that example, وَمِنَ الْمَاءِ الْبَارِدِ, that we have such love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such love for Allah ta'ala, that our whole existence, our whole bodies perceive and gain the lizzat of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From every aspect, every part, and every nerve and vein of our body, we enjoy taking the name of Allah, we enjoy the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Just with the water, we drink the cold water. It's not just the tongue and the throat, but our entire body feel that enjoyment from it. That is the manner in which we should have love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And وَمِنَ الْمَاءِ الْبَارِدِ, this also indicates towards anything else. And a person should ask Allah ta'ala, if there is something else, person may love something else. Somebody may love a char more than anything else. Whatever they have the ashuk of a char. Somebody may love milk, for example, more than water. Somebody may love green peppers, chilies more than anything else. Somebody may love the Coke and Fanta and other drinks more than anything else, whatever it may be. Whatever is more beloved, that person cannot do without. There too you can ask Allah Ta'ala, you can include that as well. Allah Ta'ala, grant me all of more than any of these, more than I love this and I love that. My Coke and my Pepsi and whatever else. That's the way I'm so attached to these things. Do Allah grant me your love which is much greater than this and everything else. We can add that on by all means. We can ask Allah Ta'ala make the intention of those things as well, because maybe for all may not be the case. But when it comes to the dua, you still use it. You know that you replace that or that you take that out, because as I mentioned to you, the words of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the enjoyment itself just in making that dua, knowing that it is the words of Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this reciting the duas that Nabi Karim sallallahu alaihi wasallam has made, that itself is going to be so benefiting for an individual. But in order not to now go back to the topic, and that will be lengthened, and stick to whatever has been mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all such love of His that always keeps us within that which is beloved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keeps us away from those things that are haram. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has mentioned as well that al-halalu baynu wal-haramu bayn. Halal haram is straightforward, open. It has been established. In between are those things which are now here and there 50-50, or those which a person has doubt with. And that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned, stay away from those things, because you've got enough to remain within. Because then if you're going to go into the category within that section which is now dubious, you can say, that which is doubtful, then there is possibility that you can sway and you're going to end up in haram. So stay as much away from haram as possible. A person will remain within the protection of within that which is halal. Allah Ta'ala grant us all understanding. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.